Tara, we need more cameras. Tara, can we get another angle here? We got this one. Can we get one over here? Maybe one down here. It's like this way, right? Or don't get it from down below. You got to get it from here, a little above, not too much double chin. It's the right angle. Got to keep it fun, you know? Hey guys, Chris from Propel, and we're back in New York, where it all started. We're with a pretty special bike here. It's the Gazelle C380 Plus. We had the C380, and this one's the Plus version, which primarily indicates that it's the speed version. It's got a lot of the things that I'm just kind of a fan of. It's got a belt drive. Those things are awesome and becoming ever more popular these days. NVOLO hub, I love that thing. I know some people got different feelings about it, but I think it's pretty awesome, especially for city riding. Bosch speed motor, and it's Gazelle. Gazelle's cool. They've been making bikes for a really long time, since I think the late 1800s, is it? 1890 something? Correct me on that one. And it's Royal Dutch Gazelle, I should clarify. They're actually recognized by the Queen as being a company that's been around for over 100 years and in good standing. We've had a lot of other Gazelles, and this is an extension of their Ultimate line. They have several other models in the Ultimate line. There's other ones that are similar to this in different ways, right? So you have the Ultimate C380, not the Plus version, and that's basically a very similar bike to this, but it doesn't have the speed motor, and it's got a different frame style. So it's got the way low step frame. This one's kind of got a mid step frame, and it's available in a standard frame as well. But it also has the NVOLO hub, belt drive, and that one has the performance line motor. So 65 Newton meters of torque and 20 miles an hour top speed. This is the performance line speed and 85 Newton meters of torque and a 28 mile an hour top speed. So pretty awesome. And other little details like the suspension is a little bit different, but this carries a lot of the characteristics of the other Ultimates, which like the Ultimate T10 or the Ultimate T10 Plus, probably most similar to the T10 Plus because it's also a speed motor. So basically, in comparing those two, the T10 Plus has a 10-speed derailleur, and this one has the NVOLO with the belt drive. So otherwise, very similar with the suspension fork, speed motor, 500 watt-hour battery. But overall, I think this bike's just really good for somebody that wants a fast bike that's low maintenance and easy to use. And you know, it's fast because it's got the Bosch speed motor, or it's low maintenance because it's got a belt drive and an internal hub. And it's easy to use because of the NVOLO shifter. You know, you just shift the gears. For those of you not familiar, we did a video on the NVOLO, and we've done videos on a lot of these different things, including the motor, the belt, etc. So check out the channel if you want to learn more about those things, but we'll talk about it a little bit in just a moment. It gives you a relatively upright seating position. Right now it's set a little bit more forward, but it has an adjustable stem, so if you wanted to bring it up a little bit closer to you, you can sit more upright. Now keep in mind, the more upright you go, the less efficient you're going to be. You kind of act like a sail a little bit in the wind, but I generally try to find a balance there, so you're balancing your weight between the wheels and you feel comfortable and planted on the bike. But some people want to optimize for comfort more than stability. It's up to you. The one thing I would say, personally, I'd probably add a suspension seat post. Maybe that's because I got a bad back. I mean, overall, it feels pretty comfortable as is, but I think having a suspension seat post is a good way to go. It's lighter than some of the other bikes that are out there with similar features, partly because of the narrower wheels and some of those details like that. Now, this bike's a 53 centimeter low step frame. It comes in several different sizes. There's a 46 centimeter low step, 53 centimeter, or I should say mid step. It's more of a mid step. And then they do a 57 centimeter mid step, which is rather large. This size, I'd say probably for riders, I don't know, 5'7" to maybe 5'11" or so. You could potentially go a little bit taller, but I think that's probably about the range. The 46, you could probably go down to a rider maybe 5'2", 5'3". It really depends on the inseam. Women tend to have a longer inseam than men, so they could probably fit it a little bit shorter than men, but that's the low step frame. They also have a standard frame, which is available just in the two sizes, the 53 and the 57. For the tires on the bike, we have the Schwalbe Energizer Plus. They're a 28 by 1.75. It's certainly something considerably wider than you'll find on most road bikes and stuff like that, even wider than maybe some hybrid bikes. They're a little bit narrower than some of the other trends that we're seeing there with like a 2.4 or something like that, which is pretty popular with e-bikes, but it rolls really well. It rolls really well without power. I think that's something that some people will probably appreciate. That's something that they also have in these tires specifically. The Energizer Plus historically has been a tire specifically made for e-bikes, and the intention is that it has a very smooth center track to it and it has a little bit rougher edges. So the idea is that smoother center just rolls really well and it makes it easier to kind of maintain speed, and actually they claim it's better for the efficiency of your battery. So that's something important to you. You might want to consider that. So these tires are also specifically made for high-speed bikes, meaning that they generally have a little bit of a stronger sidewall to them, because a faster bike might subject itself to, or you might subject it to, slightly higher forces and that sort of thing. So it wants to make sure it can hold up for that. So this Addex E is a new compound of the rubber specifically, and it's supposed to be more durable and that sort of thing. The fork on this bike is a Suntour. It's a coil spring fork. It's specifically made for speed bikes. Now they actually went with kind of the unbranded version, which is nice. I can appreciate the aesthetic there, because I think that's one thing. Looking at the bike, it is pretty aesthetically pleasing. I mean, I think everything kind of works well together, at least from my perspective. It's got a through axle up front. This system's a little bit unique, but basically it has a special clamping system that you basically pop it open and then you can just pop the axle out this way. It's something a little bit different, so you might want to practice with it a little bit, get yourself familiar, so you feel comfortable with it if there's ever a scenario they have to remove the front wheel. Now this suspension uses a coil spring. This fork does come in an air version, but they opted for the coil spring, and some people might be wondering, hey, that's the cheaper version. I don't want that. It's actually kind of cool. Coil spring is not such a bad thing because it's a little bit lower maintenance because you don't have the same seals in it and stuff like that. So I think it makes sense, and it goes with their brand and ethos of just like making a bike made for the city, and especially already having the low maintenance belt and stuff. We'll get into that in just a second. So let's check out the drivetrain back here. Better angles. We'll get you better angles, Tara. Okay. How about now, Tara? You happy now?
I do like the angle better.
Oh my goodness. Lock the camera in, Tara. Lock the camera. All right, so we're in the back of the bike. We could check out the drivetrain. We could also see these scratches, which seemingly the previous reviewer did. I didn't do it. I respect my equipment here, but all right, it's all good. It happens. I don't know where that came from, but it's the Enviolo N380. It's the trekking version, so it's really well suited for this particular type of application. It's a continually variable transmission, and so instead of having individual indexes inside the hub, instead you have these planets, and they basically rotate, which rotating them changes the input and output here. Some other little details, got a belt drive. It might be something that you're not familiar with. This is something that's becoming ever increasingly popular on e-bikes because it's very low maintenance. It can handle a lot of power, very quiet, and it's clean. Inside of here, there's actually these like carbon strands, which makes it really strong. So it's not just a rubber belt, it's actually stronger than that. But if you want to learn more about that, we also have a video on that. You see this reoccurring theme. We got videos on a lot of things. You should check them out. And you shift the gears with two cables up on the handlebars, and you basically twist it away from you to go into lower gear, and you twist it towards you to go into a higher gear. This clip here actually should be in like that. We're actually doing a quick little cleanup on it. We had kind of limited time with the bike, so I wanted to just get this in because this bike's been pretty anticipated. So I apologize if some of these little things are not as perfect as we might like. For the motor on the bike, we have the Bosch Generation 4 speed motor, and it's pretty powerful. It's considered a speed motor because it goes up to 28 miles an hour. It's Generation 4, which is the latest generation, and they made some improvements based on previous generations. They made it smaller, lighter weight. They used a magnesium frame. They removed this reduction gear that you might have seen on previous versions of the motor. And overall, a lot of torque, really pretty smooth, relatively quiet. So this motor, as with all motors from Bosch, uses a technology called pedal assist. Basically, you pedal the bike and it assists you as you pedal. It makes it easier to go faster, and it just kind of makes you feel stronger than you are as opposed to fully taking over the experience. So inside the motor, they have two sensors. One sensor that senses how hard you're pedaling, another one senses how fast you're pedaling, and then they have a small sensor on the rear wheel, a magnet on the spoke, and then a little sensor on the rear chainstay, and that basically senses how fast the bike is going overall. Based on that information, they take 1,000 senses per second. It provides assistance proportional to what you put into it. I should also mention while we're down here, these pedals are a little bit different. These are the Crank Brother Stamp 2 pedals. This is considered a platform pedal, just give you a little bit larger platform to put your foot on and, you know, give you some more support there. The pedals that comes with it are fine, but this is a nice little upgrade if you're considering one. For the battery on the bike, we got the Bosch 500 watt-hour power tube. They integrate it into the frame here. You can charge the battery on the bike or off the bike. If you wanted to take the battery off the bike, you actually use this key, which is locked here. Some people are not such a big fan of this. I know that, you know, other reviewers kind of knock this, and I get it. I mean, in the Netherlands, this key, in order to remove it, you actually have to lock this lock. There's this weird thing that basically they have insurance with it, and that the insurance doesn't work unless you got the key and you could prove that you lock this. This lock on its own, not the ideal security solution in a place like New York. Might work in your small town, but here, you're definitely going to want to add on to that. So this is the same key. This is a AXA key, and you could just insert it here. Turn this, and you might try to pull it out and you say, hey, what's going on here? You got to just hit this little lever here on the underside of the battery, and this just unlocks it. This is a little bit of a like safety security feature that makes it so the battery just doesn't pop out on its own, which I kind of appreciate. But the battery itself is a little bit smaller than what you see here. There's actually a plastic design cover on here that's added on. So if you wanted to get a second battery, you probably want to get a second design cover as well. This thing will get you, I'd say, somewhere between 25 to 60 or so miles, depending on what assistance level you're riding at, and you know, your weight, different terrain, etc. For the brakes on the bike, we have hydraulic disc brakes front and rear, and these are special brakes specifically made for high-speed bikes. So Shimano makes these special versions. They're quad pistons, so they have 2 pistons on either side, and just helps for a little bit better like modulation of the brake, like ability to control the pads and such. And also I think it helps with the heat displacement by having a little bit of a larger surface area. That's one of the biggest challenges with brakes overall, is they get hotter. And generally you want to have like a larger rotor, larger caliper, different things like that to displace the heat. But really, I found these to be plenty sufficient. I mean, certainly something that you could potentially upgrade, but I don't think it's actually so necessary. It's got a 160 millimeter rotor in the rear and a 180 in the front, which is really probably plenty for most people's purposes. The nice thing about hydraulic brakes is they give you a really good mechanical advantage, and they kind of self-level as well. So you might find, similar to a car, as you press the brake pedal, as your brakes wear down, you don't have to like reset your brakes all the time. You have mechanical disc brakes, like the cable kind. You have to reset the cable all the time. It's not really so ideal. And to remove the axle on the bike, you just basically open this lever here, and you just unscrew it a little bit, which just loosens this up, and then you could just kind of tap it on the other side. You generally want to make sure that the wheel is straight up and down. And now it's out. You can see how this kind of compresses, and that's how it squeezes in there. But once it actually tightens on there, that's how it'll stay in place. For the display on the bike, it's the Bosch Purion display. And to turn it on, you just hit this little power button up here. It just takes a couple seconds. By default, it's going to be in off mode. That means no assistance, riding just like a normal non-electric bike. And you could certainly do that and not have too much trouble. It's just going to be a little heavier than a normal non-electric bike. But to change the assistance level, you just hit this plus or minus button. Now you might see this number here, range. That means how many miles it has left based on the battery life here. So I can go, that's Eco mode, 65 miles, Tour mode, 39, Sport mode, 28 miles, and then Turbo, we go down to 22 miles. Probably a little bit higher than that because I have been riding a little bit. Yeah, give you an idea how that works. And that's going to update like every couple miles, which is pretty nice. You can see different details by just holding this minus button down. You can see just the assist levels. Hold it down again. You can see the tripometer, the odometer, and then we get back to that range. But I'll just leave it on the assist level here. Some other details, you have this little light icon, which means that the light is on. It's going to save basically the last setting that you had it on. So if you wanted to turn the lights off, you can turn them off. If you turn the bike off with the lights off, I should explain how I did that. You hold the plus button down, it'll turn it on or off. So I'll turn them back on. Usually a bike like this, people usually leave them on. It's a speed bike. It's kind of like daytime running lights. It helps a little bit with the safety there. Another feature you have on the display is something called walk assist. So you just basically tap this button on the bottom and you just hold the plus button, and that will basically, it'll move you around a couple miles an hour. It's not really a throttle. It's just kind of something to make it a little easier when you're walking the bike, that you're not actually like pushing the weight of the bike specifically. Outside of that, you got the battery level here. It's just individual bars. You do have a little port here, but this is just for diagnostic purposes, a little like mini SUB, USB. You do, yeah, dyslexia in full effect. You do have a little port here, which is for diagnostic purposes. Really kind of nice thing about the Bosch system, they have a full diagnostic software. It can tell you all sorts of different things that are going on with the system and give you really good indicators as to how to fix things if something was to go wrong, which is not generally all that common. And for the shifter on the Enviolo, you have this little twist shifter, which this is how you change the gears. You can't access all the gears without actually moving or pedaling the bike. Well, one of the nice things about an internal hub, or this one in particular, is that you can change the gears when you're not pedaling. So say, for example, you're in this highest gear when this little guy here is on a flat ground. That's actually the higher gear. You can come to a stop. You might have forgot to shift. You can shift it to a lower gear, give you a little easier time to start out. Now, certainly you probably can start the bike in that higher gear, but shifting to this lower gear is going to make it a lot easier on you and the bike and the battery to give you better range. Once you pedal along, it's going to go a little bigger hill, but basically twist it away from you to a lower gear and twist it towards you to go to a higher gear. Pretty simple like that. And while up here, mention the little flick bell that you have, which is a nice little feature. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. It's been a little bit strange for me, you know, being back in New York. I'm super excited about this bike, if you might have noticed already. It's kind of one of the things, like, if I was to ask Gazelle for what bike we could have, it's this one. And we actually did that about 2 years ago, and it's finally here. So thanks for delivering on that, guys. We were in the Netherlands and we kind of saw this bike coming and we're like, yeah, that's the one. We need it over here. We had to wait a little while, but we got it. So good job. I'm excited to just get to ride this thing some more. Overall, let me know what you guys think, and I look forward to seeing you in a future video. All right, take care.